I am the founder of Jamii Coffee. Jamii Coffee is a coffee company that specializes in Kenyan coffee only. And for us, it's like we found opaqueness in the industry, and we wanted to be able to create that transparency, especially when it comes to Kenyan coffee. We also found some issues that we needed to fix in the industry. So we started working into fixing that. It was really a ground up system that we were able to create. So for us, we always said like we want to create radical transparency and also bring innovation to Kenyan coffee and how you receive it, and how we offer it to our customers. So we always like to say Jamii Coffee is a sustainable coffee, and I know sustainability has been used for to a point where now probably people are becoming almost numb to it. But for us, it's like we truly mean it. It's about sustainability, and how we view that is number one is to be able to create transparency, and be able to identify opportunities that create durability in Kenyan coffee communities. In durability, we mean we talk about like how can we be able to make these communities successful? How can we be able to actually not just pump money to it, but also realize the realities of what's happening on the ground and what causes those problems. And that's what we always started with. So some of our mission programs, because we are very mission driven, as part of our programs, and when we started working on these was we realized that at the beginning we needed to do a lot of quality management. Quality management starts from the farm level and actually goes all the way to the production of the coffee. And we wanted to offer our roasting community high quality coffee. But for high quality coffee to happen, it has to start at the farm level. You can't have a good coffee if actually you are not doing really good things at the farm level. So we started that, and we realized that most of the programs that used to do that in Kenya had actually failed for a number of years. Actually, since the 1990s, they had failed. And so we started working on those ideas. And then after we figured that out, we realized that the farmers themselves did not, there are people who came from the colonial era. So they did not mostly understand about coffee as a business. So the other thing was also for us to be able to see how can we be able to make them understand coffee as a business. So we started a cost of production analysis, and we pegged it to production. So how much you produce versus how your cost of production, so that you would take advantage of economies of scale and be able to remain profitable. And also we started opening up coffee trade. It was very vague to the farmers. They never understood it. It was actually super vague. So we had to open it. And then because of things and neglect that had happened for so many years, most of the farmers have neglected coffee farming. So for us, it was also trying to revive those industries and figuring out how do we revive a dead, like a wet mill, which is actually, that is not in operation. How do we make sure that it works? And also like how to revive neglected coffee farms and encourage those farmers to do that. So for us, when we are carrying these programs, we had to be creative and innovative. Kenyan coffee has always been washed coffee, but with the failure, we found that we needed to come up with the new ideas. And that started with like a natural coffee production, which is not common in Kenya. You don't see Kenyan coffee farmers producing natural coffee. So that was one of the things that we started implementing. And not only that, producing a high quality coffee from that. And then we also started reviving. We had to convince the farmers to revive so that we could revive their wet mills. And that included contracts with them, which was pre-harvest. And also we started convincing them that this is how much you need to get paid. So our contract started before even the farmer could harvest the coffee. And it is, and that perspective is how we started seeing change where these people were, when the farmers are starting to come in. We saw an improvement in coffee quality as the farmers started to invest more, because now they had confidence that they're going to get paid. So they started to invest more in the farms. And we saw a really bump up improvement in quality of the coffee. We also supported with one of our farmers, we started supporting like other farmers to start growing coffee from like from zero. So we started like, we find some farmers with like seedlings, and then we could be able to get them to a level where they could be able to start earning income from that. And it's because of what they knew that at the end of the day, they would be able to come. So with all these, we realized that, and when we were doing this work, we realized that there are some things that were beyond us. And those were like the rains were coming in when they shouldn't, or there were dry spells, and we couldn't be able to predict it. The technology wasn't there for us to be able to have it. And the farmers would keep saying that, you know, I have invested on this, probably like I sprayed my coffee, and now against insects, against insects, and now I'm still getting those problems. And we could be able to see even the coffee cherries, even the coffee beans, they had like insects that had eaten them in, and that was creating a loss to the farmers. So, and actually creating a loss to ourselves, because we are committing for those cherries when they are on the trees. So to us, well, that was a challenge. And also like other investments like we could look at was like, would we be able to build greenhouses? Greenhouses are expensive in Kenya, and most of the farmers cannot afford them. And mostly the greenhouses were because you know, it's raining when the coffee is on the drying table, and that would really impact the quality of the coffee. And that's when we crossed paths with Ashley, and she was doing this amazing work, and she shared her system with us, because we found that for as much as capital we have, we didn't have enough capital to be able to undertake all these big projects. Like, it was a project one after the other, and we needed a simple solution. The farmers could be able to have it. It could be able to be delivered even to the remotest part of Kenya. And we didn't need to be there. We didn't need to be able to just hold the farmer's hand. And it was tough for us, because if it's on a location, then how great would it go? So Ashley came up with this idea, and when we met with Sprout, with their technology, we also saw an amazing part of it. And that amazing part was like, and it was two-pronged. For us, it was as importers of coffee, when we contract with the farmers, we end up losing some of our money. So we end up making it a loss. And then if the farmers themselves, they are not yet in our group, they end up losing money as well, because their production goes low. So if you take that in context, it actually creates poverty, because if we end up going at a loss and we are trying to create sustainable systems, and we are funding these systems by ourselves, so two things would happen. Either we sell coffee at a higher price to try and recover our lost revenue, or we end up going out of business, which means we put the farmers back to where they were in the beginning. And that is what we feared most. That's a loss of hope. The farmers who are not part of our program, is that they end up getting into poverty. And at this point, I'd like to give an example. And this is very close to me. I wasn't born in a coffee family. I was born in a small rural farming family in Kenya. And for the last 2 years, I must say that I've sent my mother enough money to be able to plant and replant. And that for me is when it became real, because she would plant, she would expect the rains to come. The rains don't come, the seedlings come up, they sprout, and then they die because there was no rain, or it rains too much that they get swept out. So I started thinking about members of our community within my hometown. And then what we realized after asking my mom a lot is like some of the people stopped planting. So now people are losing their income, their source of income, because they cannot plant their stuff anymore. So, and that is on a different spectrum, which is not coffee. So for us as a business, we feel like this a good opportunity here. And for me, I can talk about the social things that we are able to see, the missions that we are able to try and fix, and the problems we are trying to fix. And I'll let Ashley take over on how the technology helps us to be able to recover and be able to make that possible. So Ashley, to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Francis. Yeah, I really love your perspective. I think you've been in coffee longer than I have. And you've seen sort of the many years of building back coffee communities, or being able to invest when years are good and when years are bad. So that was really helpful. And yeah, just really excited to introduce myself to this community. I'll give you some background on Sprout and where we've come from. So I'm currently in California. That's where Sprout is based. But personally, I spent like the last 7 years living in Kenya and developing solutions for rural and farming populations. So really infusing some of my tech background and startup background into solutions that could benefit small scale farmers that sell into global value chains. So Sprout's very short history here is that we started in 2019 as an idea to take really novel approaches to insurance. And we'll tell you a little bit why it becomes climate insurance and climate protection as the solution. But yeah, I've been working with insurance partners, research institutions, not just in coffee, but in a couple of other staple crops. So yeah, we're very passionate about using technology and very passionate about providing financial services to farmers. And yeah, so we'll get started. We'll tell you about Climate Smart Coffee and sort of where this really originates from. So with that background in technology and in working with farmers, we looked at the coffee industry. We started early last year, learning a little bit more about some of the climate risks in coffee. Sprout addresses them, of course, but in Kenya, we don't see frost as a big issue, but extreme temperatures generally, the difference in temperature in a day seems to impact coffee. The rains, as Francis has pointed out, I mean, no farmer in Kenya can say the rains are perfect. They're changing. There's less of them, or they come at the unanticipated times. And then, of course, the indirect consequence of climate is pest and disease. And what might not be obvious is that actually pests and disease are the real damaging sort of catalysts for production loss in coffee. Coffee trees are they're quite resilient, and there's new hybrid varieties coming that thwart off some of the climate risks. But we're seeing the pest and disease, coffee berry borer, CBD, they're all having quite a consequence. When they come, they can wipe out. We've heard stories of up to 100% of production. And that means not only is the volume not there, but the defects, the quality, it just can't be sold. And these are the general sort of issues that we've surveyed from farmers on the ground level. So, we're working with lots of cooperatives that give us this feedback, but we're also looking at these variables throughout the seasons and looking back historically. And that's a lot of what Sprout does with technology. So Sprout really tries to simplify two things that we do. We want to understand and be able to predict when production is changing in coffee. So our first country, and working with Francis is awesome. We're in Kenya. We're able to predict changes in production using a number of methods, but we lean really heavily into satellite data. And the reason for that is because weather monitoring, weather station data, while it might be abundant in some locations in sub-Saharan Africa or where we find coffee growers, we don't necessarily have robust long-term data. And we're finding that the satellite data community, including those who like originate satellite information like NASA, the European Space Agency, they have open source imagery that we can analyze and understand climate variables from. We're also seeing third parties that take that data and run models. And these are really sophisticated, pretty accurate models that we have for sub-Saharan Africa. So we're able to take climate data and pair that with farmer production data that we're collecting from cooperatives and through different networks, even through, Jemmy's network, which has been really helpful. And then use machine learning and different tactics to sort of create products that solve some of the problems around climate that we said before. So we have two products that Sprout offers. One is called the Sprout Alerts, and that is a sort of real-time information channel to farmers through their mobile phones. So it goes directly to farmers. And then we have crop insurance. So that is ensuring the loss of production of coffee at the farm level. And I'll just walk through both of those real quick. And the way that we do that we really take a granular approach to collecting data. So this is a view of Mount Kenya here on the left, and Nyeri and Kirinyaga counties, and those are different cooperatives that you maybe have had their coffee from. They exist in different locations that have slightly different climate patterns, but generally fall under the same seasonality as they're clustered in an environment that produces their main crops at the same time. We also use polygon mapped data, really, really specific to an individual farmer. So this is a cluster of farmers here in the middle. So we can get real granular climate data about the farm and match that with their farmer information. And then of course, like we're working with farmers. So farmers not only receive information, but they sometimes give us information. We'll do one-on-one interviews. We'll go to a farm. We'll really learn about like how they experience climate, and if our pairing of our technology really matches their reality, which is very important to like delivering high quality products to farmers. You have to co-create with them. So we have a team on the ground that does that in Kenya. So our first product is Sprout Alerts. Sprout, it takes its information about agronomy. So we understand sort of coffee at the farm level, coffee production. And we also understand that production is sensitive to climate throughout the year. So there are some climate sensitivities that if we know the climate is shifting for that farmer, when the farmer doesn't expect it to be, generally there's like a calendar of when you should be doing certain activities in certain locations as it sort of matches with the rains and it matches with like historical production norms. But if that climate's off, let's say, as Francis pointed out, the rains are too much or they're too little, it's really hot that week, and you have a spraying program or a fertilizer program or a pruning program, you might change your behavior given that climate shift. But farmers don't always know that like the climate is going to shift that week or within the next couple of days. If there will be super heavy rains or the drought that like that midterm drought they're experiencing will continue. So what Sprout Alerts does is it takes forecasted climate data, again, based on that satellite data information, and it forecasts the next few days or maybe up to a week of mostly rainfall information and obviously temperature. And then it interprets that based on where the farmer is in the season, and it says, okay, you should go on as planned. But if there's an extreme climate shift within that week, our platform actually automatically triggers a response and says, based on this pest or disease, based on what we know about your agronomy calendar, you're seeing different weather than you expect. Here's an agronomist suggested change in behavior. Maybe don't spray this morning because it's going to rain heavily and your spray will get washed away. Things like that. So farmers are not only being efficient with the tools that they have, maybe they're saving money, they can actually double down and invest more in their farm when they need to, and not based on a generic historical calendar that may not be accurate for them. So these are SMS-based pieces of information. Any farmer can receive them as long as they have a phone number. Most farmers have a phone number. And if those that have Android apps or Android phones, they can also receive that. But often the Android, the rich text goes to an agronomist or someone who meets with a group of farmers. And this is an example of a calendar. So the three major pests and disease that we're working with right now are coffee berry borer, coffee berry disease, and coffee leaf rust. And this is the schedule in Kenya when we are on high alert and at high risk for those pests and disease to come. And then rainfall we're always providing. And on the right, it's our dashboard. So you can kind of see the type of alert. So this is the rainfall alert, and it'll give alert when you have an average of 30 to 100 millimeters in the next 4 days. It actually becomes really precise based on the sensitivity of the crop and what might be considered little, medium, or high rain. So climate insurance is the second product that we build at Sprout. It's a really complex insurance type because we're not only insuring the loss of production, we're doing that by looking at climate. So we take a number of climate variables that we know coffee is sensitive to. Here are some examples: soil moisture, which is something we can read from the sky pretty accurately. Temperature, okay, humidity is not a common one, but rainfall would definitely be a common one. And we look at the average, the minimum, the maximum, like any type of arrangement of that variable throughout the season and when it's most sensitive to a crop. And in this case, we're looking at coffee. So rainfall in the pre-flowering stage, in the expansion stage, temperature, things like that. And we put together all those variables, and they're called indexes. So it's called indexed insurance because it's a proxy to estimate production. Because at the end of the day, a farmer, there are some climate risks that farmers face that we believe they can manage throughout the season. And that's why we have Sprout alerts. But there are some extreme weather events, like extreme drought, that no matter the amount of spraying and fertilizer you apply or the pruning you do, you just it's impossible to overcome. And for those extreme events, we have insurance. And insurance looks at, again, extreme temperature and water sort of ranges at a frequency of like 1 every 5 years or 1 every 10 years, depending on the policy. That pays out a farmer that difference in the production they would normally have and what they've lost that year. And so we're looking at different variables to understand when those extreme seasons happen and what their production would be. So we're really ensuring the production loss, but we're using these proxies or these indexes to come up with an insurance product. Sprout is not an insurance company. We're an insurtech. So we build technology for insurance products and for insurance schemes. And that means we work with insurance companies. So we partner with very large reinsurers that would underwrite the product, and Sprout facilitates the design of the product in this case, because we have that capability, and also the distribution. So working with market actors and farmers to make sure that they have that coverage. Here's an example of how an index looks across the season. So there's different fluctuation. This index could be any index. It could be a rainfall index. It could be a soil moisture index. It could, right, any of those pieces. And we see that in a normal season, it has a normal pattern as it relates to, and this is just an example, as it relates to these different parts of the season for a farmer. So when they're waiting for flowering, when that berry is starting to expand, and then finally when they harvest, where are these risks in production and quality? And when there is an extreme deficit in what we expect for that index, we know that it's impacting production. Or when there's an excess in that index, we know it impacts production. That's when farmers are paid out. So indexes is really us monitoring those climate variables throughout the season and also reporting back. But really the payout happens at the end of the year, because as you know, coffee really has a main crop, and the sensitivities sometimes I think can be over more than 1 year. Sometimes you can see that's really impacted by the year before's rain, but mostly for insurance purposes, we're looking at like the full year. And Climate Smart Coffee is the combination of those two products, because we believe that's a holistic approach to overcoming climate change. And with one or the other, I'm sure it could move the needle, but our theory of change is that having both a real-time and sort of extreme instrument to overcoming climate change is what farmers need based on feedback. And that it really does produce higher quality coffee. Farmers over time will earn more income, really driven by the notion of producing more. I don't know if this audience is like super aware, but the production levels are very low per tree in Kenya, as low as 1.5 on average for some that work very closely with large groups of farmers. And it can be 5, 10, even 30 kgs of cherries. So at the farm level, cherries per tree. And in a farmer being able to feel like insurance is going to have them in the worst years, or like a climate bonus will have them in the worst years. And also they can overcome some of the smaller climate risks to push towards 5 kgs. Over time, their production levels will be higher and they'll be able to earn more income from that. And as Francis mentioned earlier, yeah, we have a direct connection to farmers. It's great. Farmers are receiving real-time information. They're receiving it from Sprout. They know who's been investing in their program, because at the cooperative level, we have that arrangement with their buyers. So they know their buyers are investing in them in these programs. It's eco-friendly. Climate Smart Coffee really does promote climate smart agriculture, which is more natural farming. And yeah, it just means that over time, we're going to have more coffee for this increasing demand from consumers, and yeah, specialty coffee at that. So just a little bit of background on sort of the income and why we maybe started in East Africa. East Africa grows phenomenal coffee. I know we can all agree that. I got to, drink it firsthand for many years. But this is a little bit fuzzy, this screenshot on the left here. But on the bottom left-hand corner, we're seeing the East African farm gate prices and then volumes on the x-axis. And really, East African farmers are making the lowest incomes, and they're producing really high quality coffee. So we want to move the needle. We want to increase the production and be able to get farmers like closer and closer to the black curve here. So farm gate prices have increased recently. I think we all know that. But we really want those volumes to be sustainable for farmers, because that's what helps them sort of get out of poverty, is to be able to count on large volumes and sales and not just swings in prices. So yeah, this is a big one. And Sprout has started in Kenya, but we've developed a design and distribution platform that makes it quite easy for us to launch in new countries. So around East Africa is really important for us. We're having conversations already with growers in Rwanda and Uganda, and also Central America is the key location for us. But yeah, for now, the Climate Smart Coffee with Jamii is really a Kenya focus. And we do have ambitions to reach 1 million farmers by 2025. 1 million sounds pretty ambitious, but there are 12 million coffee producers around the world. How many of them are receiving, climate updates? How many of them are protected from these like really bad seasons that bottom them out? So really using the Sprout alerts as an entry point to them getting certain information and building the insurance programs around that. We're pretty confident we can get here, but it's going to take, quite a lot of feedback and participation throughout the networks in the United States. So it's like roasters bringing awareness and also importers being able to offer climate smart coffee. So a little bit about Kenya today. We have 4,500 farmers that will be protected by the end of the year. So working with a couple of buyers in Kenya. We've sent tens of thousands of alerts already. We launched late last year with a cooperative, and we're working with a number of cooperatives in the central Kenya region. And just to note, we're mapping the coffee growing region. The slide's a little off there. That rectangle should be a bit higher, but we're working in a project with NASA Harvest to accurately really map the coffee farms in central Kenya, so we can gather really granular data about those locations. So it's been a really fantastic project. We've been on the ground this whole year working with farmers, but did a really big push this summer to collect some really important production and localized data. So this leads us to sort of the Climate Smart Coffee initiative. It's really three main actors. Right now, we're based in the US. We know coffee is sold everywhere, but this is where we've started. So it's a nice opportunity for US roasters and US importers to really lean into this model and help protect farmers through their sales of coffee. So these three actors, Sprout, an importer, Jemmy, and then roasters who purchase from that importer, all can be involved and strengthen climate smart coffee and climate protection for coffee farmers. So of course, Sprout is managing the technology. We're doing a lot of the predicting, the monitoring, like the heavy machine learning aspects, and that SMS capability to farmers. So we've built that and we maintain that and grow that. And then once the coffee from those cooperatives reaches the US through their importer connection, that importer can promote this opportunity for those cooperatives or those farmers through the sale of coffee. So the importer says like, hey, these are the groups that have the opportunity for climate smart coffee and receiving Sprout alerts and receiving insurance. So those roasters that are purchasing from that importer, can join in, and they can have direct impact on farmers. They can purchase climate smart coffee. They can bring awareness to their customer, and they can do that by, if they choose, like adding the climate smart coffee label, which we have available for roasters to put on their bags, make little signs to say that, yeah, a portion of the sales of this coffee are going back to holistic, long-term, like value addition for farmers and increasing production. And how it works is that Jami, the importer in this case, is really at the anchor of it in the US. So we're adding a 25-cent per green coffee pound to the price of coffee. So here's an example on invoice. Climate Smart Coffee will just be an additional markup on the price itself. And then we as Sprout manage a technology platform for there to be like real transparency and where that money is going. For example, Francis is selling Igagania, which is a Kenya AA, and that's going to be clearly the Climate Smart Coffee markup will go towards Igagania Cooperative at this point. We're also just able to pool generally Climate Smart Coffee funds as we're getting started with this label, but it immediately translates into those two products for farmers. We see the impact, which could be coffee production volumes or just even the number of farmers who have access to these products. And that information goes back to both the roaster and Jemmy. Yeah, so that's it for now. That's like sort of the highlights. We'd love to field some questions, but for anyone who wants to get involved and isn't able to be here today and do the Q&A. Jemmy is an importer of coffee, and maybe actually, Francis, you want to jump in and chat about this? You've unmuted, but
yes. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for explaining that. I've been trying to explain your knowledge to to some of my roaster friends, and and I failed miserably. But I think it's amazing that you have been able to actually clarify it better. So for us, like with Jami, if we go back, Ashley, can you go back a slide back to where the invoice? So for us, we thought that like this is an example of an invoice that happened. So you have the smart climate coffee, the 25 cents per pound. We split that into two. So Jami takes 50% and the roaster does a 50% on it. And the reason is that we are all players and we are trying to actually create this system for the farmers so that they can be able to benefit from it. And as Ashley mentioned, I know some of us here, like Joey, has already purchased like the Roiro coffee, which was amazing. I'm still drinking it, Joey. So good. Yeah. So and that coffee is produced through this Climate Smart initiative. which is super interesting because we have been working on it. And for us, we worked when Ashley was doing this, we were like, okay, are we ready to start talking about it until we are able to see how it's working? And for now, I think Roy is actually, the production has moved up quite a bit, which is something like we are very proud of because when he started it, we didn't even know how it's gonna go. But with Ashley and her tech, I think we're gonna see better things coming out of Roy. Ashley, if you go to the next slide, please. And if you receive a text, which actually, which is so funny, I received the text from the farmers as well. They send me a text when they receive the sprout alerts. And it's amazing because you can be able to see, like an example of one that I received was a rainfall message for Thursday, very low to no rainfall. So if you're drying your coffee, you don't want to, you don't worry about that. You can be able to go do your thing. Farmers are always worried, like, if I leave my coffee, is it going to rain? And if it rains, how is that going to affect? And then it tells you how long it's going to be. So for the next 4 days, we're not going to be receiving that. And then the farmers are able to send feedback to Sprout as well. So it's also farmer driven quite a bit, because if they're able to send a feedback to Sprout, that's how Sprout also gets to know, oh, there's farmer has experienced like leaf rust. So how does Sprout know? It's like, oh, the farmer has sent us information, I've started seeing leaf rust. So, and then you look at the weather. So why does the weather come in, and how is it affecting that, and how we're going to predict that? So I think for me, that's amazing. So we decided that starting this year, with this season, actually the coffee that has just landed, we do have an Igegania. All the coffees that Jamie will be offering starting this season is always going to be climate smart, because we have to protect this. We have to protect these resources. That is what feeds us, especially as importers, coffee importers and roasters. If coffee is gone because of issues, or if our quality goes down, then you start seeing, we start losing that market, and it's our livelihood. So I think it's for us, we thought it was an important thing that we start supporting this initiative and keep growing it. I think Ashley is going to get to her 1 million farmers sooner than she thinks. There are already 750,000 farmers in Kenya. So if we can be able to bring all the farmers in Kenya, that already that would put her on that pedestal. And as we revive coffee farming, more farmers come in. The more farmers come in, so does the platform keeps growing and be able to achieve its goal. One of the things that really also caught me and what sold me was climate insurance. Because people have been driven into poverty. So many farmers were driven into poverty because of like a failure of a crop. One season, the profits are very minimal at the farm level. So the farmers use those monies to educate their children and to pay some of the stuff. So you can imagine if a crop fails, that's it. And the farmers don't have any more resources to invest in it other than just taking loans. So, and I find climate insurance as part of that thing that would help the farmers actually when they're really down, to help lift them up. And we have seen through data, like I think 2000, and this is data from like 2007, the US was contributing over 78 billion worth of climate, of like carbon emission out there, so impacting climate by about 78 billion. You can imagine how much we are doing right now. I think we are improving, but I think if you look at this number, that number was phenomenal back then. So I think it's also a good way. And then when everything happens, it goes back to the equator, and that is where all the coffee grows. Kenyan coffee is all grown within a few degrees of the equator, and that's where all the crop gets dumped after it comes from either the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. So how can we be able to, and these farmers don't have any impact on that. They don't contribute that much to climate change, but yet they're the ones who are being impacted by it. So having our customers also being part of this, and especially our coffee consumers people who consume coffee in your coffee shops. Those are the ones that we want to be able to create these awareness and be able to say that cup of coffee might not be as amazing as it is right now, or not as beautiful, and especially with specialty coffee industry, you're gonna see some mangled coffee beans, and that's something we truly want to avoid. So for us, we took that initiative and be able to say we're gonna incorporate these climate change fund by actually putting it in our pricing, and in that pricing, the roaster contributes half of the 25 cents, and Jamie contributes half of the 25 cents. And then we start supporting this because we believe it's a worthy cause, and that's something for Jamie we cannot well, that is beyond our control. And Ashley has that technology to be able to make it a reality. So when you buy coffee from us, Ashley can be able to will also provide information about what does that mean, so that you can also create awareness to the consumers, people who drink coffee, who buy your coffee. They can be able to know that every bag of coffee really impacts the climate, and how can we be able just to give back. We are improving, but I think we still need to support those farmers down there. So let's get involved in this. And yeah, every bag you buy, it will be with the 25 cents, and that's with the markup. And then that's the price of the markup and the real bag of the coffee, and it will be shown on the invoice. That's something you're going to see on the invoice. That 25 cents will be on the invoice, and then that will be transferred to Ashley, and then Ashley can be able to actually be able to start actually be able to send these SMSs to the farmers. And for the people who are down in Kenya, it costs money to send a text. So it's weird, but yeah, it does cost money to send a text to the farmers, and they can receive them even with the old technology. The technology goes even into the old phones, so it doesn't have to be a new phone. So if the farmer has like the old Nokia phones, they can still receive these text, and we want to continue supporting that. So yeah. So if you have any questions about anything that Jamie is doing or Climate Smart Coffee entails, please yeah, go ahead and ask.
I have a couple questions, if that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll keep recording, but yeah, just in case others have the same questions. This presentation could have been a few hours, but definitely go ahead, Joey. We'll try to answer your question.
Thank you. And so I got two, and so we can answer one, and if someone else has a question, they could hop in, or I can answer both depending on how it looks. But my first question is regarding the climate insurance product. And correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like Sprouts kind of just facilitates the farmers receiving an insurance policy based on all of these indexes that Sprouts kind of factors in. So in a way, it's like you bring in a third party to provide that insurance.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, is there any kind of work done to kind of ensure that those interest rates are just basically to ensure that they're accessible? And the interest rates aren't going to have adverse effects if they're too high or something like that. Just kind of curious about those kinds of details.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've been working on what we call our actuary model for the better part of this year. Our actuary lead is actually Kenyan, and insurance is expensive, and micro insurance is even more expensive because the amount of interaction you need to have with your customer, who is generally has a smaller business, has a smaller income, but needs the same amount of interaction as a farm that could be 10 times the size, right? Explaining the policy, signing them up, make sure there's a term sheet, like all these activities in financial services. So I've actually been working in microfinance off and on since I started my career. And you're right, it can feel very expensive. It's called a premium rate. So the rate at which the cover represents the full production that you're insuring. We're trying to drive that premium rate down by being very lean in those administrative costs. So not having too many stakeholders in play really helps, covering extreme weather events rather than all weather events, and then trying our best to mitigate those sort of interseasonal challenges with the sprout alerts. Our hope is that it really drives down the cost of insurance. So we've priced the 25 cents per pound based on the best premium rate that we can get for serving a farmer, climate protection in the form of insurance at the farm level, given that we have to have all these interactions, and then trying to work in groups. Working in those groups means working at the cooperative and especially the buyer level. So that could be, an importer who has a subsidiary in country, or that's like an exporter in country who already provides financial services like loans, fertilizer on credit, and can bundle in insurance as part of their offering. And we're able to finance and subsidize that insurance through the ClimateSmart Coffee premium that we've broken down. So we think about it a lot. A farmer just can't afford insurance right now. Farmers can barely afford sort of like living the sort of like livelihood income that coffee just doesn't provide yet, a livelihood income, which means they can have health insurance, they can send their kids to school, they can, eat really well. It's not just one of those things, it's like having all of those things that, we'd expect. And most farmers are walking their cherries to the processing facility. We're talking about low income farmers. So in order to ensure their production loss, the investment needs to come from the supply chain is our theory of change. And Francis has supported this from day one. And it's fantastic to see because we think it's going to move the needle. So all of those things in tandem are such that it's expensive for farmers. We sold $1 premium values to maize farmers or corn farmers in Kenya. That felt expensive to them, but they're producing hundreds of dollars of maize. And the same is for coffee. It would be very difficult for them to pay for premiums, but they're facing this climate change risk that affects all of us, even me as a coffee consumer, right? Getting my favorite coffees and getting enough volume and keeping the prices down. We believe this is the right solution, and we're trying our best to keep the prices down. So we're working with also global insurance companies that can facilitate and lower administrative costs.
Okay, thank you so much for.
You're welcome.
And then my second quick question is just kind of going back to that one slide about the index insurance. If I missed this, but I was just curious how you arrived at like the normal season kind of line there.
Yeah, great. That's a great question. This is the nerdy part of it. So we go to a location. So I think this bottom left corner, these little pink polygons or geometries actually represent administrative units in the country. So this is the lowest administrative unit in Kenya. It's called a ward. And these are boundaries that are, government drawn and openly available and widely used to sort of look at locations. So they're governed and organized in this way. And we take the average, or we collect climate data from these different locations, and we do it over a 10-year period. We can try to go back 40 years, but since climate is changing, it doesn't really make sense to go super far back. We want like sort of more recent climate norms. And then a couple of years isn't helpful because we're not trying to pay out farmers every other year. We're trying to see like extreme weather events in sort of a decade. So we take the averages of that information, and that creates a normal year. So that includes good and bad years, but like when production is kind of like normal for a farmer, like what is a smooth, normal production level for a farmer? It's not good or bad, it's the average. And then we can know what extreme production drops look like because we've collected the equivalent of production data across many of those wards. Like that's a lot of the work that we've done is go get that granular production data from cooperatives and partners that we have. And then we analyze them against each other. So what is a normal season of production as well. And when does production drop, we see the sensitivity in that index also move with it. So it's highly correlated. That's a big factor of quality for us, is those things are correlated. And then we know we cross-check that with farmers. Was this a bad year? Was this a good year? And the climate data shows that. So it's an average of historical climate. Did that answer your question?
That totally answered my question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay, I think we have about a minute left. It looks like some folks needed to jump off. I think we can answer one more question and wrap up. Or maybe this was enough. Okay. Well, Francis, I don't know if you have anything left to say, but I'll just say thank you so much for everyone coming out, and we're going to do a couple more of these. So happy to invite, anyone that you think this would resonate with, roasters and importers alike. Get in touch with us at coffee@sproutprotect.com. If you would like to buy the Ikigania this season, it's available from Jummy. And yeah, any way you want to get involved, just let us know. We're open.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thank you for helping me explain this step. And we're excited about this. And thank you for everybody for showing up today. And we're excited about this movement because we believe we have to take the first step. And I think our first step is to be able to be proactive rather than just wait for somebody else to do it. And that's why, as a small company, both Sprout and Jamie, we're just deciding to take this step, move forward, and be able to show that change can happen if you just believe in it. So thank you so much for being part of this. And and we will be holding some more. We're gonna be I think this is about preaching. We're gonna preach some more about this because we believe in it, and we believe that it has a lot of impact on a lot of people. So yeah, thank you.
All right, have a wonderful weekend. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.